Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting of the 21st of August 2023. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for the minute-taking purposes, and it will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We're all back from leave and sickness and whatever tonight, so we've got a full house. It's great. Also, we have no apologies. Welcome our Chief Executive, Nigel Morris, our Acting General Manager of Community, Matt Atkinson, our General Manager Infrastructure, Andy Baker, our Acting General Manager of Corporate, Tash Hunt, and Tanya Cregan, Executive Assistant to the Mayor and Council members and takes our minutes, and other staff that are here to join us. I'd like to welcome the members of the gallery, welcome Jack from the Victor Harbour Times and the Florio Sun, and Georgina from the Southern Argus, and we have our friend from South Coast Television here to record the meeting. The Alexandrina Council and its communities acknowledge the Narrandjeri people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. I ask you all to please stand for the local government prayer. Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to grant thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you very much. Just remind elected members of declarations of interest. If a member has an interest in a matter before council, they're asked to disclose the matter interest to council and provide a full and accurate details of that interest. And members are reminded to declare that interest before each item. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I would just like to make my declaration now because for item 3.2, 7.1, 7.2
as the item comes.
So we don't need to do it now?
As the item comes up. I just said that 2 seconds ago. Yep. So the first item is confirmation of the minutes of our meeting held on the 17th of July 2023. There's a recommendation that they be received as true and correct. It's moved Councillor Maidment. Seconded Councillor Livingstone. Any discussion relating to those minutes? If not, I put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2 is adjourned debate. There is no adjourned debate. 3 are presentations and deputations. We have 3 this evening. 3.1 is a deputation from Ms Rose Kentish on behalf of the Middleton Storm Committee, and she'll make a deputation on behalf of that committee. So welcome, Rose. Are you happy with 5 minutes, or do you need more than 5 minutes?
Maybe just a few minutes.
A few minutes more, okay, everybody? Anybody complaining about more than 5 minutes?
Might be
Good.
5.
Go for it, that's fine.
My name is Rose Kentish. I represent the Middleton Storm Committee. It's been approximately 7 months since my previous deputation here at Council, and I thank you all for your time. Our loss of confidence in our council, the Alexandrina Council, continues. We lost confidence in November 2022 after the storm on the 12th of November devastated 28 residents and 5 businesses, with very little reaction or duty of care shown at the time or since by our council. We are a township, a community. We're still waiting for our council to step up and show its professional actions and its duty of care. We are appalled that we are still vulnerable, and we're having to force our council to step up and do its work. We are in the heart of winter, and we are not seeing general repairs and maintenance being done that address stormwater issues in winter. For example, the culverts remain blocked around the township of Middleton. Debris was still blocking the creek in late June, with the township of Middleton experiencing constant heavy winter rainfall. It took Anna Vincent to call the council and then chase the council again by phone 2 weeks later until the team came and cleared the creek. We want you, our council, to do your general repairs and maintenance around stormwater while we all wait for the hydrologist report that we understand is being delivered in October that will focus on the storm mitigation plan. For example, we are still waiting for action to be taken in these critical areas, and they include the 2 Middleton bridges that are in need of urgent repair. According to council communications, both bridges were supposed to be repaired in May, June for the bridge on Mill Terrace near the mill, and then subsequently July, August for the bridge down at the beach. These bridges are critical for the township businesses, residents and tourists to move around Middleton safely. Critical. Work is obviously stalled, and we can see no evidence that the works are close to completion. Pedestrians are taking their lives into their own hands, navigating the train line in order to move through the township. And council knows that this is happening because we brought this to your attention at the council meeting at the deputation that we did 7 months ago. The second point, Middleton Creek needs ongoing clearing. The creek always has debris collecting. It's an ongoing thing, particularly on the northern side of the bridge. This is an ongoing risk to the people and buildings in the township of Middleton. We believe this to be an issue of public infrastructure. This problem hasn't even been addressed properly or dealt with in the master plan, and adds to the community's lack of confidence in its council. Who will deal with this and find a resolution to this critical issue? Point 3, the current Alexandrina council budget. Why is there such disparity between the money assigned to Middleton in comparison to the rest of the townships in the council area? And I'll give you some examples. Ashbourne, according to what I've read and we've read as a group, has been assigned $395,000 towards storm damage. Goolwa, $390,000 towards storm damage. Middleton, we don't believe any money is being spent directly on storm damage, and I'll state why. There's $125,000 in there, but it's to deal with existing infrastructure, drains and gutters that were inadequate prior to the storm, not as a result of the storm damage. Footbridges, but they're paid for by insurance. And the 3 crossings on the main street, which has got nothing to do with storm damage, is being paid for by a state government grant. And then the 4th point is rates. How is, therefore, a zero storm repair budget for Middleton reflect a good and fair distribution to Middleton residents and businesses, given our high rate level? In previous conversations that we've had about that, we've been led to believe that the rates revenue is shared around the townships and that Middleton's time will come. Well, we think it's our time now. What do we have to do to get our council to listen to its constituents, the residents of Middleton, and do their job of building better communities and showing a critical duty of care? Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Any questions? Anybody? No. So thank you very much for your time, Rose. Appreciate it. So 3.2 is a deputation from the Langhorne Creek Cricket Club. We've got Robin Cock, who's the treasurer of the cricket club, will make a deputation regarding some upgrades to facilities at their oval. Thanks. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you for having us today. Our 5 minutes is ample. Thank you. Thanks very much for having me today. I'm here to talk about, to discuss deputise council for some funds to replace our existing practice facility. So a bit by way of background. The Langhorne Creek Cricket Club has over 150 members and 57 of those are junior members. And we're really focused on being a family-friendly and a community hub for Langhorne Creek over those summer months. So we're about to embark on a project where we're replacing our existing practice facilities, which is shown up there in the photo on the right. They are very old and they've reached their end of life. And because of their age, they don't comply with Cricket Australia community cricket guidelines. So we've tried a few times over the last few years to access funds from different parties to assist us in upgrading these piece by piece, but however, to access money from the Australian Cricket Infrastructure Fund, the whole facility has to comply with the current safety guidelines, and the only thing we can do is to knock them down and to rebuild them. What this does mean is it makes it the single largest infrastructure project the club has to undertake since, I'm told it was 1973 when they upgraded the turf wicket in the middle of the oval. So what the new facility will actually do is that we'll have no grass or weeds between the ovals there. It will reduce our maintenance costs. The internal nets will be a polyethylene thing like the one on the left up there, which is primarily around player safety and to prevent balls ricocheting around. Also, there'll be full-length internal nets to protect players. There'll be a polyethylene fly net along the top of the facility, which prevents balls from flying outside of our boundary and particularly onto the tennis courts next door. And we'll also have synthetic run-ups, which mitigates a lot of the safety issues with ankle sprains during trainings. Plus, not to mention, it will look more modern and have a much more pleasant aesthetic appeal than the current very old facility, and it will also occupy a smaller footprint in the end. And our main hope is by doing this that we'll have better facilities so we can attract more players and retain more players, particularly junior boys and girls, and hope that they fall in love and become active members of the Langhorne Creek community. So just on what the project here is actually costing us, the total project is $140,000 in round numbers. So we've been saving for a number of years towards this, and we're able to contribute $77,000. $40,000 of that is in our own money, and $37,000 is in-kind labour through the provision of labour for concrete installation as well as demolition and disposal of the existing facility. We've also been lucky enough to get the maximum grant possible from that Australian Cricket Infrastructure Grant of $30,000, but it means we do have a shortfall. So we've been planning this since before 2020, since before that COVID thing, but costs are currently rising faster than we can save money to do it. So we're at a point where we're pushing ahead full steam to try to get this done now. So we're chasing a number of funding opportunities, and we've applied for 2 of the donations already administered by council, and I believe there's one in the agenda later on to vote on. The first one, the $2,000 donation, is primarily to assist with early costs such as planning application fees and some service location, and the other one is around earth moving materials for early on. We're also attempting to access infrastructure grant that's administered by the SA government to some of the shortfall in funding, as well as trying to get some from the Memorial Parks Committee for increasing their asset. And the reason for being here is to solicit that funding from council to cover some of the gap. I do just want to point out that the gap there is more than we're asking for, and most of that is because things have shifted since we first wrote a letter to council, in that one of the local supporters hasn't been able to deliver on some of their in-kind work, which made it better, plus the amount which we can contribute without stretching ourselves too much has reduced because we had to replace deep fryers and dishwasher in the kitchen. So that's all I have to say, but I'm happy to take any questions on any of that.
Thanks, Robert. Any questions? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. You can certainly see a lot of work has gone into delivering this project for the club and the community. Well done. It's really incredible. I suppose I'm wondering about council providing the rest of the funds when the council budget is very tight for this year as well. What are the implications of the club? I believe I saw in our agenda that the club does have the option of getting a loan to cover that, is that right? And what are the implications for the club?
That's certainly our fallback position and something we are investigating. I think the issue with that is that we are a little bit constrained into what we can borrow being a not-for-profit community organisation. We would be mostly focusing on trying to get a loan through a member that could perhaps support and then have agreed terms to pay them back, because I think we won't have access to bank funds because of we're a not-for-profit sporting club. We have limited, we've had a number of very good years through hardworking volunteers in the canteen, but we can't demonstrate that as an ongoing concern to a bank. So that's really the fallback, which we are sort of, talking to some people if we can't. Obviously, because appreciate funds are tight with council and everyone, we are approaching state government as well as other sponsors around, particularly to get sponsorship exactly for the project. But that's the fallback that we're considering, and there's a bit more work to do there as we work through it for sure. That's all right.
Any further questions, Councillor Coomans, then Councillor Maidment?
Look, thanks for your presentation. We've got an item later on, 8.1, and it talks about $2,000 from our community donations fund.
Yeah.
And then $9,000 shortfall, which is a total of $11,000. Is that what you're actually looking for from council at this stage?
Yes, that is correct. So we originally asked for $11,000 because that was the shortfall we anticipated. Basically, you can see there the shortfall is like $33,000, so it's gone up a bit, but we're not increasing the amount we're asking council to fund. We appreciate that's not council's role. We will go and knock on every other door to try to find the other bit missing, including the local supporter that was going to install some stuff for free and has decided they don't want to do that. So we'll follow that up, but that's where that came from, because the 11 was the initial bit that was the shortfall with our original budget, but with reducing our contribution by $10,000, which we also can still probably do if we really stretch, and the in-kind stuff is why it's gone from 11 to 33 in the last 3 months, I think, since we first applied.
There's also a letter from you in support of the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club for their bid for Lot 10. Does that have any impact on what you're trying to do now?
No, I don't believe so. I think speaking to our president yesterday about that, that's not, probably shouldn't be construed as a support for that bid. It's support for an oval in Strathalbyn. We're agnostic as to who provides that oval. Yeah.
Councillor Maidment.
Yes, Robin, you've done a marvellous job in cobbling together this particular budget, and that shortfall of 33,000. If we delay much further, it's probably going to blow out even more. You are aware that the Office of Recreation and Sport have just released their grant funding stream of 5.5 million, and with a focus on women's sport. So I'm sure you're going to go into that grant opportunity, and from my experience, when you're putting up fences and putting down concrete and starting from scratch, you're going to have some contingencies that you won't even think, you won't even expect. You'll need some contingencies for the unforeseen things that are going to happen. So good luck with your fundraising, but I think that if we can get more sporting participation from anywhere, Langhorne Creek in particular in this case, it's a good job, but I congratulate you on getting well over 50% of what you're asking for. Thank you.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, we certainly are going for the Office of Sport and Recreation grant. That's written up and almost ready to go. I need a letter of support from council to go in with that, so I'll be following that up this week. But we are following that up as well as a couple of other avenues, so appreciate that.
Any more questions? No. So Robin, just get the letter in requesting a letter of support, and we'll do it straight away for you.
Yes, no worries. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 3.3, which is a deputation regarding the draft Community Land Management Plan. We have Mr David Gray AM to make a deputation regarding his submission to our community land management plan. So welcome, David.
I would like an extra couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, please.
Just a little bit more than 5 minutes.
Yes.
That'd be okay? Yeah, thanks.
I have to come to terms with this thing. Your Worship, Mayor, Parks, Councillors, thank you very much for the opportunity this evening to present to you on agenda item 8.4, which is to do with the adoption of the Community Land Management Plan for the various community land held by Council. I'll refer to it as the CLMP. On behalf of my wife Cheryl and myself, I'm asking you to make one change to the CLMP if in fact you are going to adopt it here tonight. It's not a big change, but it's an important one, and I'll explain why. Since 1990, we have owned the property at 3 Island View Drive. And I'll point that out, if this works. No, it's not showing. No, it's very difficult. It's up the top end on the right-hand side. Just across the road from this large council reserve, which is referred to in the CLMP as Lot 270 Island View Drive, which is shown here. That's that whole area, basically. The Clayton Bay Riverside Holiday Park operates on a portion of this reserve. That's in the middle there. It also extends towards the water, but that in itself is a problem, but not the subject of the CLMP, because the CLMP doesn't cover road reserves. If I can just click over. Please, thank you. I told you I'd have trouble. For that part of the holiday park that is on the reserve, all of the permanent buildings and a large portion of the roadways are in the caravan and tourist park zone, which is the CTP zone as shown here in red, or browny red. This picture is taken from the South Australian Property and Planning Atlas. This is where the holiday park should be. It's the right part, it's the right zone for it. You can see from the image that the conservation zone, which is green, which surrounds it, the CTP zoning. The conservation zone protects the River Murray and the wetlands, which are an integral part of Clayton Bay. Immediately north of this area, of this holiday park, the reserve is not developed, and nor should it be. The area is a natural and open landscape with grass areas, reeds, native vegetation, and simple walking trails. There are fish, turtle and frog hatcheries in the area, and is an important breeding ground for migratory birds and reptiles. This is not to mention the River Murray Flood Protection Zone and the native title that all exist in this space. In this area, the river is part of an internationally important wetland known as the Coorong and Lakes Alexandrina and Albert Ramsar wetland. It is also an area which provides magnificent views from the heart of Clayton Bay. My wife and I enjoy those views along with the hundreds of people, both residents and visitors, who come to that area. The holiday park should not be extended into the conservation zone. However, you can see that it is already occurring. To the top there, we've got caravans, boat trailers and vehicles that are being parked in this area. This brings noise and unsightliness into the area that should be protected. Earthworks and retaining walls were recently built in this area, apparently without approval at the time. Such works and activities on this reserve degrade the area. CLMP should prevent this from happening, not just because we say so, but for three main reasons. Firstly, the environmental protection of this internationally recognised area. Secondly, the preservation of public and private views and amenity for all. And thirdly, and very importantly, consistency with the Planning and Design Code. Unfortunately, the CLMP before you does not prevent the holiday park expanding out of the CTP zone. Our lawyers lodged a submission about this on page 200 and 201 of the agenda. In that submission sets out the legal reasons why the Council should not adopt the draft CLMP in its current form. I won't go into that. But the most important issues here are the CLMP proposed in the agenda would allow the holiday parks and camping grounds to operate outside the CTP zone. And it would allow the holiday park to expand into the conservation zone. I've tried to explain tonight why this is a bad idea. But importantly, the law says that the CLMP cannot be inconsistent with the Planning and Design Code. This is the effect of section 196, subsection 5, paragraph A of the Local Government Act. The solution to all of this is quite simple. I ask you to turn and refer to page 271 of your agenda, but at the same time, if I could have the last slide, please. This plan was prepared by our lawyers and shows an overlay of the CTP zone on the plan which is in the agenda at page 271. It shows the holiday parks and camping grounds outlined in black and the undeveloped reserve to the north, which is outlined very faintly there in white. The common boundary between these two, where the black and white outlines run together, just to the north of the CTP zone there, need to be brought back to the edge of the CTP zone. In conclusion, we humbly ask the Council to fix this boundary before adopting the CLMP. Thank you very much again for your time, and I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you, David. Any questions of David? No. Chris? Yeah, Councillor Thornton? Yeah.
So what is outside of that red in the black zone, that line of building?
Outside the zone.
Yeah, at the top.
To the north is an access road. Just over that access road, between the access road and the black line, is park sites and rubbish. Then the main area there that you can see are storage areas for caravans and boat trailers. And there are a couple of camping sites, caravan sites that have been built there, as I say, with retaining walls and grass areas.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No. Thank you very much, David. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So item 4 is petitions. 4.1 is a petition relating to the draft Milang master plan. There's a recommendation that we note the petition and that it be included as feedback in the draft Milang master plan currently open for community consultation. Is there a mover that we do that? Councillor Miller and Councillor Oliver seconding. Any discussion? Not put recommendation. All those in favour? Okay, it's carried unanimously. Item 5 is questions with notice. 5.1 is a question with notice regarding the Goolwa Oval Recreation Precinct. The question and the answer is in your agenda. 5.2 is a question relating to granny flat rental from Councillor Nicholson. The previous one didn't say it, but it was from Councillor Miller, I believe. So 5.2 is from Councillor Nicholson regarding granny flat rental. The answer for that is also in the agenda. 5.3 was from Councillor Maidment regarding 9 Mile Road, Strathalbyn, and the answer is in the agenda. 5.4 is from Councillor Miller regarding the Strathalbyn Town Plan 2014 to 24. The answer for that is in the agenda. 5.5 is from Councillor Miller regarding infrastructure agreement with developers, and the answer to that is in the agenda. Item 6 is questions without notice. So are there any questions without notice? Councillor Maidment.
Question for administration regarding the Strathalbyn pool opening on, I think it's about the 16th of October. Is there any move to increase the temperature at which the pool will remain shut? Last year it went from 23 up to 25 and then it went back to 23 degrees. So is that something that is being considered at the moment? And I don't need to have the answer today, but there was a request from someone that raised it with me this morning.
Through the chair, last year it changed without being referred to council, so we changed it back, and there is no movement to change it again at this stage. So if it's currently set at 23.5, it will remain at 23.5.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I did email through some questions. I had 5 questions which were just yes or no answers about the Greater Adelaide regional plan. If you're happy, did you want me to read them out, or are you happy? Because I would like the questions and the answers included in the minutes.
You have to request that now.
Yeah, so I request
email
that.
Doesn't count. It's just.
I'm moving that they be included in the minutes only because the Greater Adelaide regional plan discussion paper was only released on Monday the 14th of August for consultation, which passed the deadline. We have to have questions submitted by 5 p.m. on the Sunday. This is just so really important for our whole region that I'm happy to just leave the questions there with the answers. If there's someone happy to second that we include this in the minutes, thank you.
Members happy. Is there a seconder that we include these questions in the minutes? Councillor Nicholson. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So there are 5 questions will be included in the minutes. So do you want to ask them?
So my questions were, will Council be making a submission on the Planning SA's Greater Adelaide Regional Plan discussion paper that was released on Monday the 14th of August for 3 months community consultation?
And the answer to that was yes.
Is the administration aware that the GARP includes all of Alexandrina Council and therefore our entire council area will be included in the definition of Greater Adelaide Region?
Through the chair, yes.
Does the GARP discussion paper consider where new housing and employment lands should be developed, how these homes should be serviced, how the state preserves its environmental assets, what major infrastructure will be required for future generations?
Through the chair, yes.
Will council members be given the opportunity to contribute to, review and endorse council's submission before the 6th of November 2023 deadline?
Through the chair, yes.
And will council raise awareness across its social media channels and networks of the opportunity for the community to comment directly to Planning SA on the GARP? Thank you.
Through the chair, yes.
Councillor Coomans.
Thank you, Mayor Parkes. This is probably further to the presentation that was made earlier from Rose Kentish from the Middleton Storm Committee, and it's in relation to item 8.3. Given the recommendation from staff for a grant application to the local roads and community infrastructure for just under $400,000 project associated with the Ashbourne stormwater mitigation, what have been the actions in relation to the November Middleton floods, given that in that case some of the residents are still not able to return to their homes? Is there any update available for the repairs of the bridges in the Middleton area? And could staff also update the council on the 3 Middleton pedestrian crossings being funded by the state government? When will work begin? And I have another question as well.
Through the chair, I'll start answering those, but I'll also ask Mr. Baker to come forward to help me with the pedestrian crossings. With Ashbourne, the big difference between that one and Middleton is that we already have a stormwater management plan in existence for Ashbourne, so we know the work that needs to be done. So we're currently waiting on the hydrologist report for Middleton, which we're expecting in at October. And then that will give us a guideline of what we need to do going forward. In the budget for 23-24, we did adopt the $125,000 for Breakers Court stormwater upgrade at Middleton. We also put in additional $60,000 for stormwater work for Middleton, which we're waiting on the outcomes for the hydrologist report. I'm guessing that that $60,000 will probably be put into more engineering reports depending on what they say. So there's a lot of unknowns at this stage with Middleton. And we've also got the hydrologist report, which we've carried forward the budget from last year. As far as the 3 crossings go, Mr. Baker?
We have been speaking to the state government on the 3 crossings. The costings come back over their budget, and so we're still talking to them about those 3 crossings, and we haven't got to a conclusion just yet. They're the ones. The 3 crossings. Yep, they're the ones.
Can I just ask a further question then? In terms of, there is some budget items for some of the work required in Middleton. Is the budget going to be sufficient to do that work? And is there a possibility that the application for the local roads and community infrastructure could be for both projects, both Ashbourne and for some of the work in Middleton?
Through the chair, I don't know what the budget's going to come from the stormwater, the hydrologist report for Middleton, but what you're asking for is can we reserve some of that LRCI funding for that? We still need to allocate $400,000 for Ashbourne to get that work to proceed. But what we'll do with the hydrologist report is not only release it to council, but we'll release it to the community. And if there's budget constraints with the budget for Middleton, we'll bring them to council to do that expenditure. I also wanted just an update on those, not the Middleton pedestrian crossings, but there was a question regarding the bridges. I was wondering if we could talk about when the bridges are proceeding.
Oh, the bridges themselves, the footbridges that Rose was talking about, they are in the process of being put together as we speak. So you'll start to see some action on those really shortly.
Sorry, my other question is in relation to the Tour Down Under next year, which is terminating in Port Elliot. What funding will be made available for showcasing the event in that town, in Middleton, and indeed all of Alexandrina?
Through the chair, when we decided to proceed with that back at the May meeting, it was done in confidence, but at the time it was resolved that a further report will be brought back to council on that to determine what costings will be done to that. So we'll bring that report and that can be determined at that time.
Okay, but sorry, further to that, there is no budget item at this stage?
Through the chair, that's correct. There is no budget item at this stage.
Councillor Scott.
Thank you. In relation to Middleton, some weeks ago I did ask about the removal of 2 box culverts in Mill Terrace because I believe they were inhibiting the free flow of water down and potentially causing extra flooding. Is there anything, you were away on holidays, so have you been updated with what might happen there? And my second question is in relation to the crossings. Given that you've said there's some backwards and forwards with the department, are we going to see them in by the busy summer season? Thank you.
I'll take the first question about the culverts. I'm not aware of what we're doing with the culverts at the moment because I've been on leave and I haven't had a chance to get hold of my manager. But I'm led to believe we've had some movement in the team, so he's been shuffling headcount around to try and accommodate what we're doing at the moment. So I'll talk to him tomorrow about that. When it comes to the crossings, I can't put a deadline on when they're likely to be in. It's not our project as such, even though they will hand it to us. At the moment, we're just negotiating the money side of things.
If I may, then if that money becomes available and you sort out the discrepancies between the two, is the team ready to start on that immediately? And I'm sort of pursuing this a bit because it's very important Middleton traffic is a nightmare, and we're heading towards the summer season, and it will become an even greater nightmare if we don't have those crossings. And it would be great, I realise I'm not the works manager, appreciate that, but it would be great if a priority could be put on them as soon as the money becomes available to get them in, at least the one by the store, at least that one first would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, just to counter that, yes, we will get straight onto it as soon as we get acknowledgement from them to do that. I think there's a caveat there that it could cause you problems once they're in as well, because you'll be stopping traffic a lot with people walking across through there. So there is a bit of a caveat to that.
Any further questions? If not, we'll move on to item 7, which is notices of motion. 7.1 is a notice of motion from Councillor Miller regarding Lot 10 Langhorne Creek, Strathalbyn, and a community update. You wish to move that and speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I moved this motion, and I have sent through as a courtesy an email earlier today, just to clarify a couple of extra recipients for letters from Council and what to include in that letter. And the reason I've done this is because I was actually delighted to receive that email from Max Beasley and the attachments to it, because it confirmed for me that there are other sporting and recreation groups who, if given the opportunity, would be really interested in Lot 10. It confirmed for me that we don't need to, in effect, subject our community for the sake of $4 million to one former stakeholder who has a small membership but a big amount of money, but in the fastest declining sporting industry in South Australia. So the only aspect of the email that came from Max Beasley that concerned me slightly was that there is perhaps a risk that he may not be fully informing the groups that he's canvassing about the current status of Lot 10 and who the decision maker is and who has control over that site. And it's not the Harness Racing Club. What also concerned me in that email that he sent was he provided a history up until 2022. He'd omitted what has transpired since 2023, and I'm very worried that the sporting groups and bodies he's speaking to with are unaware of the current status of the site. And that is that on the 16th of January, it was the SRC who wrote to Council and advised that the EIO, their expression of interest would be permanently withdrawn if we didn't make a favourable decision, that is, if we didn't go with what they wanted, regardless of what the other interested users needed. And I'm not going to repeat everything that I said back in February or in March when I thought Council had finally made a line in the sand, and the recording is on the website and people can listen to that. Max Beasley rang me after the February meeting and said to me that he wasn't interested in dealing with smaller groups. If they are contributing millions, they want a big say. The letters were addressed to whom it may concern, and it is my view that this new information concerns all of our community. And I'd like to write to the Eastern Hills Cricket Association because, just further to Councillor Coomans' question about Langhorne Creek cricket nets, Langhorne Creek is not proposing, the cricket club is not proposing to move to Lot 10. It's an extra facility that's desperately needed, an oval is needed, because they play... Macclesfield plays Strathalbyn at Finnis because there are no ovals, there's not enough ovals in our Alexandrina and Hills Cricket Association. Most of the teams have women's teams, or they are they've got, sorry, not women's teams, but they've got each grade, there's about 8 grades in some clubs, and they just can't find ovals to play on. So that's why the letter of support has come from the Langhorne Creek Cricket Club, is for an extra fixture. And then the other reason, I just wanted to remind everyone that we're about to award a tender for the development of a comprehensive business case that considers needs analysis, community consultation, cost and budget, staging, management models, funding, community benefit, economic benefit, wellbeing benefit, opportunity risk management, depreciation, and importantly, the management models. and that will be a document that any organisation for recreation and sporting facilities can use. It will test and validate if indeed we need to do anything at Lot 10, and if we do, what's the management model and who should be the users on there. And it'll give us confidence in decision making into the future. So this is probably all relevant to the next item as well, but I just wanted to remind everyone of decisions we've made only 5 months ago, and that we should write to these stakeholders who are expressing interest, just ensuring that they are fully informed and have accurate arm's length information. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Any seconder? You're seconding it? You wish to speak to it?
I'm happy to second that motion, Councillor Miller, and keen to hear discussion on the matter. It's certainly a complicated issue, and I'm hoping to learn a lot tonight from the Chamber about the views and which direction we're looking at taking this in. So I'm seconding it for that reason. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Look, I might as well make my argument now for the 7.3 because, or 7.2 I should say, because what I would say then is what I need to say now, I think. So.
But you're speaking to this one.
Sorry?
But you are speaking to this
I'm
one.
speaking to this item, and if it fails, then we'll move the next one, which will be the one that I've proposed, and I'll speak in relation to the first one then. Firstly, just a little bit of history, as I understand anyway. The Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club has been a driver in Lot 10 sporting complex since the beginning. They've been great corporate citizens in selling their existing race course and land to enable commercial development of the old site, which is progressing as we speak. They have a very healthy bank balance, which I understand is upward of $7 million, and they want to stay in Strathalbyn if possible. Earlier this year, Council received information that this group had an interest in purchasing some or all of Lot 10, and that they would then develop a sporting precinct. They asked for Council to contribute towards some of the infrastructure. I can recall lots of positive nodding of heads in this chamber at that time when that proposal came to the chamber. But then we were advised that they and the steering committee were at loggerheads, and the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club initial action was to withdraw from the steering committee, probably because the meeting atmosphere was becoming somewhat toxic. They followed this up with a letter which provided an end date of the 31st of March this year to pull out from the whole project if support for their inclusion failed. I think this was written with some kind of frustration. I now have available to me an email from the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club and supporting documents from other clubs, and including the Regional Development SA, which is a very influential group, the Langhorne Creek Cricket Club and the Strathalbyn Show Society, and many others. The Harness Racing Club state that indeed they do wish to continue negotiations to purchase all or part of Lot 10. I also understand that the club is not sitting on its hands and is exploring a number of other sites in the state, none of which are in Strath nor Alexandrina. Other groups are also looking at alternative locations. So the loser in all of this is the sporting community of Strath and beyond, and probably the ratepayers of Alexandrina. Now, referring to the letters in support, the RDA, the Regional Development Australia letter, in which the chair states we must complement the vision of the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club in putting so much effort in. The RDA have offered to assist in any grant applications. Very powerful. Overall, this proposal aligns with the RDA vision for an economically prosperous region made up of resilient local communities, providing homes and jobs for the healthy, engaged populations, and who are well connected to each other, to services and economic opportunities. Wow, what a partner. Squash and Racquetball South Australia letter, General Manager, who states would like to register an interest and to partner to develop new multi-use facilities. And they also talk about 9 other indoor uses for the courts. The Langhorne Creek Cricket Club president, who states interested in the cricket facility within the Harness Racing Club plan. They want 4 senior and 4 junior teams to participate in that land. The Strathalbyn Cricket Club presidents, who state they require an additional playing facility and want to be part of Lot 10. They also mentioned indoor cricket inside the stabling complex. Gold medal tourists have ordered cool tours from Mark Coolmartry wanting to be part of the venture. From the Strathalbyn Agricultural Society president wanting to be involved with the SRHC and others to work together for Lot 10. Volleyball SA from the CEO in support of the venture and wanting to grow the sport. They also would like beach courts with sand. So in my view, I think we were a little hasty in accepting the call from the steering committee to exclude the SHRC when they, the SHRC, are in fact still very interested and have the finances, almost 7 mil, to further this project. And they can also use the assistance from RDA to leverage other funding. Council certainly does not have access to funding of up to 50 million, as mentioned by a consultant. The budget only has some 100K for a business case, including perhaps infrastructure requirements. Here is an opportunity to meet the early needs of Strathalbyn and only requires minimal initial funding from Council. I have to say though that the negotiations should include the need for Council to spend money on infrastructure, and there may be other ways in which Council can contribute, but for example a peppercorn lease rather than a sale. Mayor Parkes, members, I think we would be foolish to disregard a proposal from the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club and therefore ask you to oppose the motion and to support the next motion that I'm proposing. The future of the Strathalbyn and the whole of Alexandrina sporting and recreational facilities is in your hands. Thank you.
Just made it. That was 5 minutes. Councillor Scott.
Councillor Coomans has said much of what I was thinking. I'll just be brief and say that on one hand, we've got major development happening around Strathalbyn. There's going to be, if all that subdivision is filled, there will be a lot of extra residents in Strathalbyn that will be looking for recreation facilities. And they're obviously at a pretty well limit now. And there is no one else that has cash in hand. Earlier, the cash wasn't in hand. That organisation now has cash in hand and is willing to spend it in the Strathalbyn area. And I think that the Strathalbyn people broadly would question our thought process if we didn't engage and try and secure that funding and more funding, because when you go to government, you can, with money, you very often get better support. And so I'm afraid it's a complex issue. It's not an open and shut case, but I feel that I can't support this motion.
Any further discussion? You've already spoken. A question, you can, yeah.
If this motion goes through and the letter, so it's a letter would be sent to the people listed at 1, 2 and 3 stating what council is already doing, does that then impact what we do at the next motion to a significant degree, or can we pass this motion and the next motion go either way?
Through the chair, I don't think this motion conflicts with the next motion at all. This motion is saying, let's tell all these organisations 1 to 9 exactly where we're currently at. We can send that letter off, but of course, if the next motion gets through, I would also be giving them an update of the second motion as well. So they should be treated in isolation.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Thank you, Worship. I thought we were just debating whether to write a letter to these groups and tell them where we're at. That's all I'm asking here. I wasn't debating the next item. I see no reason why we can't write to all of these organisations and let them know where this is at. We made a decision 5 months ago, at the request, mind you, of the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club. It wasn't the project steering committee that asked for them to be removed. It was an express letter that came from the Harness Racing Club that said, unless you sell us or lease us a portion of this land, which is, and I'm sorry that we haven't had a tour of the North Ward yet so that you could all appreciate, not from a map on paper, but the visual and size and scale of a harness racing track smack in the middle of Lot 10 that will seriously impede any other sporting groups and multi-purpose use of Lot 10. Now, this is a debate that should be being had at 7.2 in my view. All this is doing is asking to write a letter and ensure that all of these groups understand that council is about to award a business case to conduct a needs analysis of the sporting requirements in Strathalbyn. I'm really confused now why we've weaved into this debate the risk to my motion of writing a letter to all of those groups. Why wouldn't we write to those groups and tell them of this exciting opportunity for our community, that there is growth in Strathalbyn, that we need to develop a multi-purpose facility at Lot 10. How that happens, I would hope that the RDA would support a multi-purpose facility regardless of whether it was the Harness Racing Club were there or not, because you've got at least 9 other groups there, plus you've got the Strathalbyn Cricket Club who said they will go there regardless, they only want a second oval. The Langhorne Creek Cricket Club, they will go there because they need a fixture to play at. That's they won't be playing there every week. They've got their own home ground with a beautiful turf wicket and they're about to upgrade their nets. This is an association issue. So I don't understand why we would not write to all of these amazing sporting groups and the other 5 that are part of it, the Model Aircraft Club who've been there for 35 years, who will have right here at this wall a huge fence and mound of a harness racing track that's used once a year, maybe twice a year, that will impact on the activation of that site. So yes, I am very passionate about this, but I think all of these groups need an arm's length independent letter from council telling them where this is at. Thank you.
That closes the discussion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? It's lost.
I have a division, thank you, Worship.
Councillor Miller is calling a division. Just a reminder to members that a division is a new vote. I ask all those voting in the affirmative to please stand. So you've got Councillor Thornton, Councillor Miller, Councillor Livingston and Councillor Nicholson. Thank you. All those voting in the negative, please stand. We've got Councillor Oliver, Councillor Scott, Councillor Coomans, Councillor Maidment and Councillor Gardner. So it is lost. Thank you. Move to item 7.2, a motion from Councillor Coomans. Councillor Maidment.
Declaring a general conflict of interest, I'll stay in the chamber and I'll vote on this motion, and for the reasons I've already sent the conflict of interest form into the PA for the CEO.
So 7.2 is a motion from Councillor Coomans regarding the Strathalbyn Racing Club proposal to purchase a portion of Lot 10, Langhorne Creek Road, Strathalbyn, and it's moved by Councillor Coomans. Do you wish to speak to it?
Sorry, Mayor Parks. Councillor Maidment said a material conflict. I think he meant general.
I've got general up there, so I did send a form in with general on it. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Parks. And I guess there is a little bit of confusion about the previous motion and this one, but I think what I'm proposing here is the first step, and in terms of informing all of the participants, those who want to be part of it, they'll be advised in time. I've got 9 items as part of this motion, and a number of them were actually contained in the recommendations of the February meeting that from staff, in terms of a final concept plan that clearly illustrates the area in question, confirmation from the other stakeholders that are part of the SHRC proposal, a valuation of the proposed area, a definition and estimates of the cost of installing certain infrastructure. They did ask for council to contribute towards that. Details of the ability to ensure that the SHRC actually deliver what they promise, which would be an MOU. Details on the ability to ensure the return of land to council if they were to fail. And a business case that includes detailing the feasibility, details regarding how the SHRC concept plan can integrate with Lot 10 as a whole. And the last one was consideration to establish a joint committee comprised of representatives of the whole facility. I use the word consideration because lots of work is required first, but I think, as I've said with other precincts, if you have a precinct that have got a number of sporting groups, you need some sort of advising or a liaison group that looks after the whole facility to make sure that it becomes a coordinated and well-managed facility. So I added that. And we also need to inform the Langhorne Creek, the Lot 10 project steering group of what our revised decision is. So I'm moving that way. And all the words I used before apply equally to this one.
So do we have a seconder for this? Councillor Oliver? Speak to it.
Thank you. I consider this to be a practical opportunity which is achievable. It's inclusive of others. In contrast, I don't think that we as a council have the capability to do it on our own at the moment. So I think this is the fastest, best case solution to get a great outcome for the community. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidment, then Councillor Gardner, then Councillor Nicholson.
Fully concur with Councillor Oliver. This site's been vacant for 40 years in council's hands and nothing's happened. And back in 2011, if you read the history, this all started with an approach by the Harness Club to purchase some recreation grounds. Subsequently, the Lot 10 was rezoned recreation, which freed up the opportunity for industrial land on their current site. They've been the driver in all of this, and they've gathered these people together, the volleyball and RDA and all the others. Council didn't go out and get those people, so there are a lot of more interest groups. They're not asking, they would ideally like to buy the entire space so that it become private property and develop as a recreation facility. They only require 40 acres if that's an option, which leaves 44 acres for lots of other people that want to go alone. We've heard in this chamber from various groups in Alexandrina that council should build a hockey field, or they should build this particular sporting arena, or upgrade facilities at another arena. We don't have the money to just throw around to, because there's so many sporting facilities out there, and everyone can't get what they want. Two previous plans were drawn up by consultants, have been rejected by the Harness Club and also the steering committee, and it's not so much, there's room for negotiation on where the track goes. It doesn't have to sit in the middle, as Councillor Miller suggested. They are up for coming to the discussions with council on the location of their facility or the possibility of the parcel of land that they can purchase. I'd like to see council step away. Once this is all in train, I think the council is not in the business of running sporting facilities. Doesn't do a good job. Not only this council, but all councils. They don't do a very good job with that aspect of management. So a private enterprise bringing some money in with leverage to get another, say, 6 or 7 million is going to be a bonus. And they have brought these people along all the way. The Show Society in particular have been negotiating with the Harness Club over many years. They were going to relocate to Milne Road at one stage, but the committee got the wobbles and decided they'd stay where they are. But now they really want to move. And as you heard, cricket, football, soccer, they're all stretched for playing fields. And Strathalbyn, with a population of 8,000 people, has got one major oval, and if you looked at it today, it's after that muddy weekend, it's suffering. So we do need a second pitch, whatever that might be, and I think the best way forward is to get into partnership with the Harness Club and utilise their money.
Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the beginning of when I became informed about Lot 10 and what was possible, I honestly was not really clear about the extent and scale of the project and just how it would happen. It's only been recently that I've come in contact with Max Beasley, and the enthusiasm of this president of the Harness Racing Club is just, quite honestly, infectious. I have become really excited about what the Harness Racing Club could provide for the town of Strathalbyn and its surrounds. Max talked about the importance of young people and the fact that sport is an integral part of the Australian culture. And he wants to be part of providing buildings and helping the sporting clubs of Strathalbyn. Yes, the Harness Club Racing Club may only have 1 or 2 races a year, but his plan is extraordinary, and I can really see this working for Strathalbyn. He is interested in young people and providing facilities for them at Lot 10. And I believe that there is an opportunity for a multi-purpose area for Strathalbyn and the sporting clubs. And I think that it is likely, if this goes ahead, Max will do everything in his power to ensure that he brings along as many of the sporting clubs as possible. I think we should be voting for this motion, and I think we have an opportunity to provide Strathalbyn with quite an exciting project.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I'm feeling a bit daunted by the size and complexity of this motion, particularly that at the bottom, we are actually potentially looking at rescinding a motion. So I'm actually wondering if we can break into some informal discussion for a short time. I certainly have a range of questions if anybody else would benefit from that.
Duncan will be better from it, but it will need 2/3 of the members to support that. Do you wish to break into informal discussion? I can't see any value in it myself. I don't know whether your hands up or down, Councillor Scott. So, are you in favour of it? Yep. So that's 2/3. So, informal discussion can start. But how many minutes do you want? 15 minutes. Crikey, it's a lot of discussion. Okay. No more than 15, that's for sure. So
Thank you everybody. My first question is regarding the business plan that we have already supported. If at the top of Councillor Coomans' motion is talking about Council, once further investigations have been completed, bringing a further report to Council. Could these investigations that Councillor Coomans is looking for be included in the business plan that has already gone out to tender?
Through the Chair, yes, it's definitely possible. The tender that we've gone out for at the moment is proposed in 2 stages. The first of those stages is to work out which stakeholders should be form part of that process, so it's definitely possible.
What are the implications of this motion passing as is? Would it mean that at what stage are we of the tender process? What are the implications of potentially stopping it now and going in a different direction? Is that something that can just...
Through the chair, I think the tender was the tender request was drafted in such a way that it could be adapted quite easily, depending on the users that were going to be involved. So I don't think that this motion has necessarily any impact on the way we'd be proceeding with the business case.
Because we're really informal, I'll have to say now, instead of waiting till the end. I think two things are very important to understand. The involvement of the Harness Racing Club can certainly be part of the business case without fail. They're a stakeholder. Also understand that we're talking about federal government funding through Regional Development Australia to go along with their money. There is no way that money will come to a single independent body. It will become a community facility. They will simply be a shareholder, and so will every other stakeholder. So don't be fooled into thinking that if you take the Harness Racing Club in as a partner, they're going to have control. They'll have no more control than anybody else. They'll simply have an investment in it as whoever else puts money in. I know basketball, from what I can remember, basketball had saved up a lot of money, done a lot of work over the years and lobbied for funding. I don't know how much they've got nowadays, but yeah, so I like the fact that it's coming, it's an investigation. It's not a commitment to do it. It's investigate what we can do, who's going to be involved, and the potential of investment of federal or state money.
Just in relation to the budget, we have already allocated an amount for the business case. If we did include all of these investigations, what would the increase in the budget for this require?
Through the chair, that's difficult to answer. It might be one that I'd need to take on notice. The actual business case itself, I don't think would be impacted by this particular motion, but there might be some other processes that we're required to forward that we'd need to look into in terms of what additional costs might be required.
I have a couple of questions. Why do we have to revoke the decision of the 20th of March to do all these things?
Through the chair, we're not revoking the whole lot, but what it told us to do back at the 20th of March, I'll just bring it up on the screen, if we could, Tanya. Actually, it probably isn't available in minutes, but what it said last time is that we do not proceed with discussions with the Harness Racing Club. So what this motion is doing is going against us not having any further discussions. It's telling us reopen those discussions again, and that's the only bit that it's really revoking.
The only thing I have seen in relation to this is an email that was sent to Mayor Parks that some members, not all members, were copied into. Councillor Coomans is referring to an email of the 12th of August. I haven't seen that email of the 12th of August. Has the Harness Racing Club actually asked to continue? Because it says upon confirmation from them that they want to continue their interest. So we're just working on a hypothetical here, or is there something else that I'm not aware of? Or is it, you refer to a 12th of August email? I haven't seen that. I'm wondering if everybody else has seen it.
I'm just trying to recall when Max rang me and said they indeed were very much interested and he had lots of support, I asked him to email me a confirmation that they were still very much interested in Lot 10, and I did attach that to the email that I sent to the CEO. It was at the bottom of the text, the exact words that he used, and in fact I said to him, I'm not going to do anything unless I have some sort of written confirmation from you that the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club has still got a real interest. And he sent that, and that's when I proceeded with the motion. Where can I find that?
Further, Councillor Thornton. Miller, again.
Has anyone had the courtesy to let the project steering group that we established that has the terms of reference know what's going on here? I sent them an email flagging the agenda item, but I'm not a spokesperson for council.
Through the chair, I'll jump in and answer that one. We haven't sent any correspondence to them at this point in time. We were acting under direction from council previously in how we're progressing with the Lot 10 steering group, and I was waiting on the outcome of this evening before contacting them formally.
Through the chair, the email which Councillor Coomans is referring to is that it's just an email to Councillor Coomans, and it's on the 12th of August, which simply states, I wish to officially confirm the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club's intent to purchase part or all of Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road, Strathalbyn, for the relocation of the Harness Racing Club and a proposed sporting precinct. Memorandum of interests have been submitted to the councillors or bodies, both local and state, wishing, who also agreed to the complex, and that's all it was, just to Councillor Coomans.
Councillor Thornton.
I heard that I think it was volleyball and squash have both also expressed interest to going to Victor Harbour. Do you know how true that is, and whether they've that council said yes or no?
Through the chair, what this motion actually tells us to do is go out and confirm all those stakeholders, all those that are willing to do this. And I hear this and I hear that. Well, this is saying, let's go out and talk to the stakeholders and find out where they're all at.
Gardner.
Your Worship, as I understand it, Volleyball SA were going to Victor Harbour, but they have spoken to Max Beasley and want to go now to Strathalbyn. And there's also another state body, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Councillor Coomans might be able to
Probably squash and racquetball, SA.
Thank you. So there are a number of SA organisations, sporting organisations, which want to go out to Lot 10 and work with the Harness Racing Club. I also, and I hesitate to say this, but I think because there has been, I don't know whether it's misunderstanding, that Max has spoken to council members who he believes will support the project. And so if he, no, I don't know whether I'm talking out of turn now, but I think he's had difficulty believing that some members of this council would actually hear what he has to say.
Councillor Livingston.
I get the intent behind Councillor Coomans' motion. I'm just wondering, subject to what Councillor Coomans says, I would be happy to support it, but on the basis that all of these points are included in the business case that we've already approved, because rather than a separate investigation, because really my understanding of the business case as well is it includes investigations into stakeholders, and I think if that's the intent that is behind this motion, then I would propose that if we could amend the wording. So it's not interest in purchasing.
You can't.
Oh, sorry.
You're not changing anything at the moment. We're informal. So, Councillor Nicholson.
At point number 2 of the motion, that council inform the Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Steering Group of its revised decision. This is tricky, but could we receive a brief idea of what that would say? What would the Lot 10 Steering Group be advised of if this passes?
Through the chair, I think it's a good question. That's probably the one question I've got in my mind is how do we reconcile this motion with what's happening with the Lot 10 Steering Group Committee, because there are some tensions between both of the groups, I think it's fair to say. There's also a motion of the committee that said that they didn't want the Harness Racing Club to be formed part of that Lot 10 steering group. So we then have to work out how do we progress forward with both of these parties separately. I know that there's consideration in here for a joint committee, but it'll be interesting just to see what some of the reaction is. I don't want to speak out of school. I don't know what the reaction is going to be, but I would suggest that there will be some level of friction.
So you're running out of time, Councillor Maidment.
Thank you. Yes, because of the tension between the steering group and the harness club, it's, to my mind, would be a good idea to sell half the land, or so that the harness club could gather together those that want to go with them. That would not sideline the basketball association, because there's a parcel of land that's triangular, and it's a pity you haven't seen it, but it's no good to the harness club for what they intend to do, but it would be ideal for the basketball stadium to build there, and there would be still some other land as well. But you've got to think about this: if the harness club go there and build their facilities, which are able to be used by all these other groups that they can get together, they will be providing car parking for this facility, which will be able to be used by the Basketball Association, who won't have to go out and spend money on car parking if the Harness Club are going to provide 200 or 300 spaces. So there are synergies with all of this, with Harness Club owning half the property and the other half being set aside for those groups that can't get their act together. There's no reason that the Flying Club will ever have to move from where they are. They've got a lease, and there's been no mention of by anyone that they should go. So I don't see that just investigating this is going to go it's going to go a long way, to giving the people of Strathalbyn what they deserve, and we've been waiting for 40 years.
So Councillor Scott, you've got a minute if you want to use it before we run out of time.
Could I reserve that right to speak in the official part of it?
You haven't spoken in the item yet, no.
But
yeah,
if I speak unofficially, does that prejudice my?
We're not part of the meeting procedure. We're informal, so it's not part of the meeting.
Okay. Can I then just say that I think we're jumping the gun in some of this that we're talking about. The way this thing is structured is terribly, terribly important. We're talking about, just a moment ago about the selling half it and they go off with their group. From what I can understand, it's not that sort of a thing. It needs to be a combined, well-structured thing so we can attract money into it, and it's seen as a community thing, not something just owned by the Trotting Club. And from what I can also make out is if you continue with talking about the Trotting Club owning it, that divide between, I've only been to one meeting there because it's not in my patch, but that the divide between the group and the Trotting Club may well widen. That's my concern. So it needs to be more.
Thumbs up. That's enough. I think I'm not a fan of this informal stuff. It's a meeting, so we move back into meeting procedure. So we'll go back to where we left off. So is anybody that hasn't spoken that wishes to speak to the item? Councillor Scott.
Much of what has been said, I also support, but I would question about number 9 in that list of and can I also preface my remarks by saying that the whole concept of having a regional sporting facility, which is what this is now looming to be, is very attractive to government to get something major in a regional thing. So that is another tick for this being a pretty deliverable sort of a thing. But number 9, I've spoken to Councillor Coomans about this. I feel that just putting that there is too soft for the structure that I believe needs to be there for this to be run, and I'm suggesting that it be altered to that council seek professional advice on the management model suitable for a project of this type that provides for adequate security of tenure and input by the stakeholders, and that the preferred model be instituted prior to the commencement of the project. So we don't have a repeat of any other thing. I think that we need to start off with the thing structured and move on from there, rather than putting, after it's half built, say, well, how are we going to manage it? And I seek the leave of the mover and seconder for that to be altered.
That'd be we could call it variation. Are you happy with that? Without going on too long then? Yeah, well, happy or we not?
I could say some words, but no. I think what I'm saying, consideration, and certainly I think members know my views in terms of overarching committees in sporting precincts are essential.
It's fine. If not, it's fine. Councillor Miller?
I have a question before I speak, Your Worship. I'm just concerned that we are making decisions based on discussions that have obviously been held one-on-one out of this chamber with individual council members.
Sorry, but I can't accept that conversation. You particularly have been circulating emails to all council members regarding this matter. That's part of the conversation. So it's been going around. So you can't say that members have been talking about it. That's what they do. You've been doing it for weeks.
Point of order, Your Worship, that is not what I have done. I've sent one email today about adding additional text to my words, but either way, I wish to move a formal motion, and my formal motion is that this motion be adjourned until the business case is delivered and village conversations have been held with the Strathalbyn and North Ward community, and a deputation has been made to this chamber by Max Beasley, and the steering project, the Lot 10 project steering committee has been advised of the direction this is going in. Thank you.
Check this, make sure the wordings are right, and make sure, and give us anything else that we haven't got, please.
Thank you. So it was a business case is completed, village conversations conducted with the Strathalbyn community, and a deputation heard by from Max Beasley, and the project steering group has been informed and consulted.
All right, so it's a formal motion, so it's moved by Councillor Miller. Is there a seconder for the formal motion? First seconder, so we'll lapse through one of a seconder, so we'll go back to the discussion on the motion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Miller.
I am asking that the CEO table the 12th of August 2023 email that was sent to only Councillor Coomans and not to all of us, and I am unable to vote until that email has been tabled.
It's on the screen then, so you can read it. It's tabled. You take a couple of seconds, take a short one.
Although it says the 12th of October, I can confirm it was sent on the 12th of August.
So that's long enough to read it. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Nicholson, you've spoken to it? No, but you spoke to it before that. You spoke to it, then you wanted to go into informal. Yep. Councillor Livingston?
Question in relation to the budget, similar to what I asked before. How long would it take for administration to consider the increase in the budget of the business case to include these investigations? Would a month be sufficient?
Through the chair, difficult to answer that. I think that there could also be some scope complexities with the bid. We might need to look at our procurement and whether we need to go back and seek a revised scope, because there's also the inclusion of concept plans and a range of other pieces of work that could need to be to occur. So I'm not sure whether we can get back within 1 month. We could provide an estimate within 1 month, but I think that the more detailed costings would come out as part of that business plan and concept plan, depending on what's included and what's excluded.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston, that was a question, wasn't it? Yep.
Then I would like to make a formal motion that this motion be adjourned to the September meeting, that a representative from the steering committee group and the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club have the opportunity, but not a requirement, to give a deputation, and that an estimate for the increase in budget to include the proposed investigations be brought back to council. Thank you.
So that's a formal motion that it be adjourned until then. Is there a seconder for that? You can't, you've got to have not spoken. Somebody who hasn't spoken? Anyway, Nigel says we can, but so if you want to second the formal motion? Yep. Anything to get it moving. So we'll put the formal motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That's lost. So we're back where we started again, back at the item. Any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Miller, yes, you asked a question, yep.
Yeah. Sorry, now I've just lost my question. Can we please have an update on the interim short-term use of the of Lot 10 that was being investigated while we were waiting for the business case to be developed?
Through the chair, we did provide a very brief update previously, but we're working internally through some of the questions that have been raised by the Lot 10 Steering Group Committee with a view to reporting back to that committee when we meet next, which is going to be scheduled once we appoint someone to undertake the business case.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things here, that it was this Harness Racing Club who dictated the 31st of March deadline, and I'm not sure what duress they were under. We made two decisions on the 20th of March to proceed with a business case, and that was unanimous. As recently as the 19th of June, we received and unanimously noted the minutes and highlights report from the Lot 10 Project Steering Group meeting held 16th of May. As such, SHRC made it very clear they wish to be in control of their portion of the site, and it is in the middle of the, and they have been very specific about not moving the positioning of the track It is right in the middle. It restricts how everything else gets used. And they will not negotiate on that. I was at the meeting that was said. Since their involvement has ceased, the steering group has enjoyed harmony and willingness to work collaboratively. There's no tension and everything is on the table. Any stakeholder and any user group who's interested in that site can participate. And it's a long way from the first meeting I sat in on where there was so much tension and basically dictatorship going on from the SHRC. This will be the second revocation or rescission or backpedal that's come before council since I was elected. I don't know how many times council needs to prosecute and re-prosecute a matter. In the answer to my question at 5.4, there's the Strathalbyn Town Plan and village conversations that will soon occur. And background investigations and engagement for this project could help inform the recreation needs of the community that can be translated into a future master plan. The village conversations would be a perfect opportunity to test the broader community's appetite for a harness racing club at Lot 10 and their willingness to pay for it. The Harness Racing Club have made it very clear that their money is going towards setting up their track. They are not contributing any money to ovals or car parking or stadiums. All their money is going into their facility. There are low-cost activation options being explored now. It can all be staged. It doesn't have to happen overnight. This motion is entirely in the interests of the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club, and I'm urging you to vote against it. And I'm looking forward to the business case progressing, which will tell us if there is a need for a harness racing club to be there. We can't just prostitute our community, Your Worship, for the sake of $4 million when the ongoing costs and the risk to the site are huge. That $4 million or $7 million, however much it is, will just pale into significance for ongoing costs if we're left with a harness racing club there. I wish to know the outcomes of the sport and recreation strategy and facilities development plan that's in the budget to be delivered this year. That document needs to have a chance to inform any discussions that we have around Lot 10. There is no rush to move on Lot 10. And more importantly, we need to have tested and validated information that is going to come before us in the near future in a business case that establishes a no-go or go timeline. The entire Strathalbyn and broader North Ward, and actually all ratepayers and residents in Alexandrina, deserve that at the very least. Last time I debated this, I highlighted models in Victoria that had not worked, where a harness racing club was the controlling body of a multi-stakeholder facility. And that's all on social media and all over the internet. If you Google it, you'll find what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston, you have spoken to it, haven't you? I think she has. Oh, you moved forward. Yep, okay, go ahead.
Just a question in relation to what I was speaking about before, subject to Councillor Coomans agreeing if we could amend the motion so that it reads as though the investigations are part of the business case, so the investigations are done together, it's not a separate exercise, because I believe that we need to consider this all as one.
Through the chair, we read it like it's all as one.
Councillor Coomans, you happy with
you just one sec. I'll get Matt to speak.
Through the chair, that's not quite the way I was reading it. I think there was a business case was one element of the 9 that were proposed, so I think it would be useful to get some direction from the chamber about that.
I would probably want to see some advice from administration in terms of what the implications are of including all of that, because I'm happy to, but does that mean time-wise? Does it mean funding-wise? Does it, there's impacts on if there is, but in principle, I'm happy to include that.
Through the chair, I think there would be some implications for including all of those. So a business case, it's including dot points 1 through 9. We would have to go back out to the tenderers to work through that, because the scope's really changing now. There's quite a bit extra in there as opposed to what they were previously going to do. So I would think we'd have to at least go back and revise the tender documents and extend that period of time for responses and go through that process again. So it would no doubt increase the timeframes.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you've spoken to it.
I have a question.
Another question?
Who's paying for this? Will the Harness Racing Club pay for this variation? Now that they've said they want it in, then they want it out, now they want back in, and they're asking us to change direction. Who's paying? Is this coming out of the budget that's there for the business case?
Through the chair, the way I read the resolution is that it would be council that would be doing that work.
Any further discussion? Before we go back to Councillor Coomans, we just clarify one thing again. I said it before. There is no way known. Part of this proposal, it talks about support from them, talks about funding through Regional Development Australia. And you're getting told by some members that the Harness Racing Club would put their money into land and they would own it, and that's all they'd put their money into. Well, if that happened, there'd be no money from Regional Development Australia, because the federal government will not put money into a private venture. It has to be a community venture. So you have to understand that. So part of the research here is to determine just how much federal money is possible to get. And we're not saying here that the Harness Racing Club are going to be part of this and this is what we're going to do. We're just looking at investigating it as a joint thing with RDA. So, Councillor Coomans, you wish to close the debate?
There's probably not much more I can say. I was just looking at the steering committee, what they comprise, and we've got the District Basketball Association. Well, obviously they want a stadium, and the concept plan shows that. The Eastern Fleurieu School, I'm assuming they've got interest in most of the activities that are happening there. The Model Aircraft Club, I think, they're already an existing tenant on that land, and I guess that they've indicated they want to stay exactly where they are. So, there's some discussions around that. Camper Draft, I'm not sure what's involved with that. And the Agricultural Society have already indicated they want to be part of the Harness Racing Club plan, and the Harness Club is no longer a member of that committee. So I think 7 good clubs and organisations want to be part of it, and I think it's time to move on it. Like Councillor Maidment has said, 40 years. Let's get on with it.
That closes the discussion. Just for clarification before we put it, Councillor Livingston, you talked about some inclusion different in it?
As in it to be included in the business case. That was if Councillor Coomans was happy to vary the motion.
And Councillor Oliver, are you happy with it? Thanks. Yep. So that's it. So that ends the discussion. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. 7.3. We probably never get there. 7.3. A motion from Councillor Scott regarding the Port Elliot Oval Clubroom. It's moved by Councillor Scott. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is a project that has been sort of simmering along since the last term of council, and some scoping was done, and since then, because of the cost of it, it was sort of just lay, you might say lay, not on the table as term of council term, but it just lay, but we're reactivating it and sort of splitting the project in half, because part of it was going to completely refurbish the clubrooms, which don't need refurbishing at the moment. What is really needed is an upgrade and an increase in the number of change rooms to accommodate women and girls. The plan put forward provides for that very well. It's about 250 square metres, and it also sees an upgrade and inclusion of a disability toilet in the adjacent to the actual club room. So it's since I wrote this motion, there's been an announcement by the federal government that there is going to be a considerable amount of money available for women's sport as a result of the Matildas. However, I was already believing that we should get on the front foot with this, push on, and provide the Port Ed Oval Management Committee with as much help and advice as we can, so that we can get this underway. We talk about the soccer, but of course it's also cricket, and there are women's cricket teams and girls' cricket teams. It's coming up during the soccer season, so I'm talking to the soccer president. I'm advised that they've got approaching 250 playing members, and I would think there'd be quite a little group over the other side of the hill that'll be coming towards them after what's happened in the last month. So I really hope that you'll support this, and we're going to try and get it up as soon as we can secure some more funding. There's already money laid aside, set aside, as a result of the asbestos content of the old building, and so instead of taking the asbestos out and tidying it up, we were looking at demolishing that part of the building and rebuilding with new purpose-built stuff. So that's about all I can say, and we're looking at trying to get it subcontracted out with local builders to keep the cost down. So that's I urge you to support it. Thank you.
So do we have a second, Councillor Nicholson?
Thank you. I'm very happy to second this motion from Councillor Scott. I think it is really great timing for Council to initiate a conversation with the Port Elliot Oval Management Committee based on the roaring success and the way the Matildas have just captured everybody's attention, and looking at some government grants that might be coming down the line. This club is doing really well. I believe it has over 200 members. I'm sure that will grow, and they do not have a women's change room. They have one change room, which is, I suppose, currently used by both. I think, you know, we know that girls are coming into the sport. We know they're doing very well, and I think it's only reasonable to support this amazing club in getting some upgrade to their facilities. So I think asking Council to initiate a conversation around assistance with and support to go for grants is really good. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Parks, members. To me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. This is a thing that has to happen. Council owns the land, and the club owns the buildings, and it's got very minimal toilets for the number of teams that use it. I did ask Councillor Scott whether he might be prepared to include a variation and really to emphasise that after the word to provide change rooms, that we include showers and toilets. It's something to me that's most important in terms of the potential for federal funding, especially in relation to this. Yeah, okay, all right. If I could go on. And I understand that the Port Elliot Oval Management Committee do have some funds. Council will probably need to budget some funds for next year, and then a grant applied for now for the remainder. which to meet the expected government criteria, I think probably would be 50-50. 50 community, which includes council, and 50% from the feds. And to me, here's an opportunity to participate in the Australian Matilda's brilliant success story. 4th in the world means Australian soccer, or the world game, is making a statement and is becoming more and more popular. I would also love to be able to reinstate teams in Mount Compass sooner rather than later. At least the soccer, I've got to make this comment, at least the Soccer Federation is serious about using video replays to ensure decisions are accurate rather than the one umpire determining the success or not of our local Crows football team at the last match. Thank you.
Councillor Maidment.
Mine was a question, and Councillor Coomans has just blown that out of the water. Obviously, if the club has some funds to contribute with, it would be helpful for matching grants. I know the feds might put up some funds which don't require a contribution from anyone. So I believe, as he said, that because they have some money, they might be able to use that as leverage, and good luck to them, and it's much needed, and I'd fully support it.
Any further discussion? For councillors, that they have got some money, and there's potential for further money from another council, because nearly half of their members don't live in Alexandrina. Their plans are done, so they're ready to go. There's substantial funding. There are 2 funding pools now. There's one where they can get up to 500,000. It's not dollar for dollar. It's all about women's changing facilities, and so is the federal 200 million. It doesn't count on dollar for dollar funding. It's about creating facilities. If you've seen these facilities, they're not change rooms. They haven't even got a change room. You wouldn't call it a change room. You'd be scared to go in there to get changed. It's terrible. And they're appalling, and it's a shame that we're making all these kids and young people, men and women, use this facility, and it's just a great club, and I think all we're doing is asking to support this club. For a small little club, they've got a fair bit of money stashed away, to support them in applying for these significant grants. It's really important, and we should be doing it. And this grant is aimed at this sort of thing: small clubs who've got no money, who have got women and children playing, to help them get going. Councillor Scott, do you wish to close it briefly?
Briefly, if I may, just to say that when you see what we saw last week, it's hard to relate it back to Port Elliot, but all those girls started somewhere as little girls kicking a ball around, and it would be great to one of them comes from Cumberland, and it would be great for us to be able to provide facilities that will encourage some South Coast girls and boys to achieve the ultimate. We had a boy here in Goolwa that used to belong to the Goolwa Pony Club, and he's gone away and been to 2 Olympic Games. And so from small things, big things can come. So I leave it to you. Thank you.
So that closes the discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Okay, so that's carried unanimously. 8 is administration reports. 8.1 is a community donation program report for the Langhorne Creek Cricket Club. We heard the deputation from Clubrooms this evening. There's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Is there somebody that wishes to move something on that item? We're going to move on without a mover, or what do you do? Councillor Gardner, you moving something?
Yes, Your Worship, I'll move this. I think that they've done extraordinarily well to raise 125,000 themselves, and I don't see that we can't grant them the amount of $2,000. As for the 11,000 towards the project, actually, I do wonder whether if there isn't many or any other requests for funding, whether later on in the year any extra money that is still within that pot of money couldn't go towards the cricket club.
So is there a seconder for that, Councillor Livingston? Any further discussion? A question?
I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that the 11,000 gap has slipped to 33,000. Is it feasible for us to offer them a loan? We've done it before to others, and rather than them having to go cap in hand to a bank, they're a solid club in a solid area. They've done a huge amount of work to make it to where they are. It's one of those classic things where there's a shortfall in one thing and someone hasn't come up with the other, and there's this widening gap. We just offer them $33,000 over 5 years or whatever it is.
They have to apply for it.
If they?
They have to apply for it.
Right.
Reach them to it, but that's it. Yeah.
Okay, just a suggestion anyway.
So the answer is they can apply for it, and we consider it. We've done it with the bowling clubs. It's no problem. Any further discussion? Councillor Livingston. Now, Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor. I support recommendations 1 and 3. Is that what we're... All of them. So is 2 that we will be giving the total of $11,000? Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. I support this motion. I would love to give all of the money and fill that shortfall. I'm really glad for that question, Councillor Scott. That gives me a little bit more comfort in going with the $2,000 plus an opportunity for Council to assist with the rest. So I'm happy to support this motion.
Any further discussion? Councillor Thornton.
I think this is great too. Is there an option for us to add in that we will contact them and say, apply for this? Apply for a loan with us?
I think, yeah, what are we going to foreshadow moving? A motion to do what? Yeah, so if you wanted, somebody could foreshadow that somebody that hasn't spoken. Well, you can't. Oh. Let's get Councillor Thornton's thing out of the way first. What were you saying? Sorry, I've got stuff going on around me.
I think what my stuff is relating to his stuff, so that's probably why it's confusing. I was just asking whether something could be added to this that says we would reach out to them and say, and offer them a loan rather than waiting for them to come to us.
We wouldn't offer it, we would offer them the chance to approach us for one. So the move and seconder, happy? Yep, okay. So any further discussion? We'll put that into the item. Any further discussion? I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Okay, so it's carried unanimously. 8.2 is public consultation on the draft Environment Action Plan 2030 and the draft Climate Emergency Action Plan. And there's a recommendation that we note receive and whatever. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Coomans? Councillor Livingston seconding.
Just a couple of words, if I could.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. My apologies to members. There's over 100 pages as part of this, but it's a reflection on the amount of work that's gone into this, and with the 2 separate committees in the beginning, and then the combining of the 2, but also the inordinate amount of lots of work that the staff have done in bringing this together. I think it's been absolutely brilliant, but at this stage it's going out for consultation. So when it does come back, we could probably say some more complimentary words, but this has been a fantastic project.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.3 is the local roads and community infrastructure. There's LRCI program phase 4 part B project nomination, and there's a recommendation there regarding the Ashbourne stormwater. Councillor Miller, you're moving that? Seconded, Councillor Maidment. Did you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Worship. No, I'm delighted to see that this project has been put forward, and I thank the administration for assessing this, and I hope that you will, the Chamber will support this for the Ashbourne community.
Maybe you should speak to it.
Firstly, a question, what does 395,000 get for stormwater mitigation in Ashbourne? I was there on the 14th of November. There was probably about 8 or 9 properties flooded. 4 had water go through their property. They had to rip out carpets, and they lost various items from their shed. So this is along Kirkham Road, and so I just would like to know, and there's also properties fronting the main road which were affected as well. So it doesn't seem, I'm grateful for the money, but I just don't know how much we're going to get for it.
Through the chair, it's this portion that we're talking about today is Bull Creek Road, so the main road. There's various points where this water's been coming in. There's coming in through the water channel, which is coming down the river, and it's also coming down the side of the hill on the northern side. The northern side we're concentrating on at the moment. I walked the streets with one of the residents who got washed out on the main road, and we looked at that particular channel itself and said we think we can mitigate quite a substantial amount of flooding if we concentrate on that first, and then we'll see how far that money goes in order to us to do something with that.
Just to follow up on that, that's fantastic. The north side flood mitigation, will that push water down Kirkham Road, because the drainage there is clogged up, and it probably needs to be scraped out, and to avert the water flowing over the road into those properties on the lower side?
Yeah, through the chair. What we're intending to do, or what we're looking at the moment in the planning, is to take the pipework beyond Kirkham, so it goes way beyond the township, and then distribute it down the other end. Most of that water that I'm talking about at the moment accumulates and goes into Kirkham, so that would alleviate that channel, and that's predominantly what we'll be looking at.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So Oliver,
Could I declare a general conflict of interest in item 8.4 due to the Coorong Cafe licence to use one of the reserves? I'd like to stay in the room but not participate in the debate or vote. Thank you.
So 8.4 is draft 2 of the Community Land Management Consultation Outcomes. Sorry it's taken so long, David. I wanted to bring these 2 items, yours and Langhorne Creek, forward, but we had no idea we were going to take all night to get here. So you've got a recommendation with 5 dot points. Is there somebody that wishes to move that? Anybody? Councillor Nicholson.
Yep, I'm happy to move. I note the deputation that we had earlier this evening, which I listened to very carefully, but I'm also considering the general analysis provided to us by administration, which I suppose gives me confidence to vote in favour of this, as far as I can understand that it is appropriate. Thank you.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Gardner? Any discussion? Councillor Miller?
Just a question, Your Worship. So was it necessary, so the caravan park has encroached, as I understand it. So was it necessary that they do a development application to actually do that?
So through the chair, the caravan park have not encroached. They are using the leasing area that they were given 16 years ago, I think it was.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations, all those. Yeah. I mean, you have to stick your hands up. It's just so frustrating when I get to the point where I'm going to put it and then somebody decides to ask a question or move it. So do you wish to make a comment or speak? Yeah.
If that's the case and the caravan park is not encroaching, then why is the plan that we were shown earlier different?
So through the chair, the plan you was shown earlier was one large land parcel which has multiple uses. An area was put in that plan that shows the area that the caravan park are currently occupying in black. I think it was in black or could be in white. Yeah. Yes.
And through the chair, that gets back to, you've got your community land management plan and you've also got your planning zones. What you were saying before was a planning zone, which doesn't affect the community land management plan, which has a map which matches the lease. We haven't changed anything with the lease. What we've had before is what's there before you now. So if there is a future planning application on that site, then you'll take into that zone that you're seeing on the screen before, but that's not the case with the community land management plan before you tonight.
Follow-up question. So from administration's point of view, if we do, if this motion does pass, there is no implications from point of view of that, the difference in the zoning and the overlay encroaching area.
Through the chair, we've spent several months on this community land management plan. You'll see in my forward agenda that we've been saying it's coming next month. The reason why there has been a lot of delays is we've been making sure that we've got everything right. We believe we have everything right. We do understand that is a different opinion of some, but what we have before you is being legally checked by our lawyers, and our lawyers have advised us what we have before you is correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Thornton.
So does that mean that if any more encroaching was to happen, they'd have to ask permission to do so, or they can still freely widen because it's within their lease?
So they aren't currently encroaching, but if they did wish to expand out any further into any land in that reserve, it would come back to council and it would be a decision of council. What the CLMP does, it identifies the current endorsed uses of the land. Any changes to any holiday park lease area is a future decision of council, where you take into account such items such as this Community Land Management Plan and the PDI Act.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? It's carried unanimously. 8.5 is the Strategic Land Program Group 1. It's the Goolwa Terrace Roundabout. Straightforward. There's a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Move Councillor Oliver. Seconded Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? I will put the recommendations. All those in favour? Let's start again. Let's all do it together. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. (8.6) is the Strategic Land Program Group 1. It relates to Braeside Road Mount Observation, and there is a recommendation there with 3 dot points. Is there a mover for that, Councillor Gardner? Is there a seconder, Councillor Maidment? Is there any discussion? Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, could I just ask a question on this? This land has got a number of titles on it. So is it proposed to merge all the titles into one, or maintain the titles as is, but then transfer that land to the owner? The reason I ask that is that we don't allow subdivisions in rural lands, but we do allow boundary redistributions, and I'm just wondering, it might be to their advantage to allow that in for the future, or at least discuss it.
So through the chair, this item is only in regards to the one land parcel that's identified in blue. So there is no boundaries to amalgamate with this property.
Okay, so for clarification then, it is an old road reserve, and it's then up to the owner whether they merge any titles and anything like that. This is just purely a sale of that bit of land.
That's correct. So through the chair, what would happen is no new title is created when you close a road. It gets absorbed into the title that's already there. So you can't create a new assessment number out of this and a new title and then subdivide your land from that. No, that's not the intent at all from this process.
Councillor Oliver.
I notice a neighbouring property seems to have the same anomaly. So will they be offered the same opportunity?
So through the chair, these anomalies run most of the way up that hill, so we will be picking them off, I guess, if the owners are interested in purchasing the road reserves, and then we'll be bringing them to chambers as individual items in due course.
So just to clarify, is that what we're going to do? We're going to make the offer to the other properties?
We will work through the Group 1 land program, but our intent is to, dependent on how this goes with this one, it would be to approach and seek interest for sure. Yes, we would.
Councillor Maidment.
Yes, I've traversed Mount Observation area. There's a lot of these roads, just they're a line on a map, but if you wouldn't get up there in a two-wheel drive vehicle, you'd need a four-wheel drive vehicle. You'd have to be very competent because they go up, they're like goat tracks. So congratulations to the staff or whoever initiated this, because if we can get rid of a lot of these anomalies then with roads, then it'll save us a few headaches. There is a particular landowner off Braeside Road who has a community access road, and he's having difficulty presently with the people further up the line. So get rid of these would be wonderful.
Any further discussion? I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.7 is the minutes of the Section 41 Committee. It's the Cemeteries Advisory Committee of the 6th of July 2023. There's a recommendation that we receive those minutes. Moved Councillor Maidment. Second, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion relating to those minutes, Councillor Maidment?
Yeah, it was discussed at the Cemeteries Advisory Committee that there is money coming to council from burials and quite a considerable amount of money, more income than expenditure, and there was a notion that for future years, perhaps, if there's any surplus funds from the income expenditure budget, that we could utilise that money for upkeeping the cemeteries specifically, and to improve the cemeteries in various ways. So I'd be looking for support in the next budgetary process and asking the question of administration just exactly what surplus funds have come out from that income expenditure budget. So just put that on notice, please.
Any further discussion? Councillor Coomans, yeah.
Yeah, look, thanks, Mayor Parks. And I know it's getting late, but I just had some issues with the structure of the minutes because it seems like the actual start time wasn't mentioned. It didn't include the members who were present, who actually attended. There's some anomalies about who was absent, who apologised. Councillor Scott is listed as absent, but he actually turned up halfway through, and motions were carried and didn't indicate when something was unanimous. So I'm not sure that sort of is in accord with our normal structure for committees. So I'm just asking the committee maybe at the next meeting just to have a look at that, make sure they're correct.
We can pass that on to them and tell them they need to sort of tidy their minutes up. Is any further discussion? Not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.8 is the minutes of the Section 41 Committee, the Heritage Advisory Committee of the 12th of July 2023. Recommendation that we receive and note the minutes. Councillor Maidment moving it. Seconder, Councillor Oliver. Any discussion? Not. Maidment.
Just to note the summary of the meeting and for consideration that the heritage grants are now open and the roads names list is looking for more pre-approved road names. So if anyone's got any input to that, that'll be much appreciated, particularly from the west and the south wards. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller.
I just have a question about road names, Your Worship. So this is the committee recommends the following names are added to the pre-approved road name list.
No, they don't. That's the next item.
Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yep. So any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. We move then to 8.9, which is a report from the Section 41 Heritage Advisory Committee regarding pre-approved roads name list, and there's a recommendation there that goes through with but it recommends all the areas pretty well. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Coomans.
With one slight variation, if I could, Mayor Parks. Under Mount Compass, there's a name of Mickle. Mickle was actually, Andre Mickle was a royal botanist out of the Louis XVI court. He actually joined Nicholas Bourdet on his expedition to Australia, but he left the ship before it actually reached Australia in Mauritius. So I'm suggesting we might take that name out because he didn't play an active part in South Australia. Yeah, that Mitchell there. Thank you. But with that variation or change or deletion, I'm happy to move it.
Yeah, you're moving it. You're moving it and taking that out. Yep. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Maidment. Have any discussion? Councillor Scott.
Just very quickly, I just draw your attention. You may be interested to note that Jim Smith was Banjo Patterson's sergeant in the army.
Any further discussion? I would have liked to have seen in the Milang area the name Honor, H-O-N-O-R, Bob Honor, and Brian, whose name's gone from me for 2 seconds, who I know very well. No, they moved to Strath now. Bob and Brian pretty well built those memorial gardens by themselves, planted all the initial trees and the crossroads. Would have been nice to see Bob in there. He's passed away now, but yeah, but that's all good. Any further discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. We go to we go to 8.10. which is the bylaw review for 2023. There were 2 options, option A or option B. So I need a mover to tell me which option. Councillor Gardner.
Option A, please.
Do we have a seconder, Councillor Miller? Is there any discussion? Councillor Coomans?
Yeah, I guess I've said this before. I cannot support the CATS bylaws, so I'd be voting against this. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Any further discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. So we know we've got to record them. So all those, so this is a requirement at law that we record who voted which way. So all those voting in the affirmative, would you please stand? So Councillor Oliver, Councillor Scott, Councillor Miller, Councillor Maidment and Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Gardner. Thank you. With those voting in the negative, please stand. Councillor Thornton, Councillor Coomans and Councillor Livingston. So it is carried. Thank you. Item 8.11 is delegation updates. There is a recommendation there before you listing the delegations. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Okay, Councillor Scott, with a private conversation. Yeah. Is there any further discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 8.12 is the Chief Executive Officer's report, and there's a recommendation that that report for July be received. Is there a mover that we receive that? Move Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion or questions of Nigel regarding his report? Councillor Miller.
Just quickly, Your Worship, I just wondered when we might see the capital projects update or the projects update. That I understand there was a technical issue, that's why we didn't have it, but we'll get it before the next special council meeting.
Through the chair, yes, it was just in putting in the new projects into the new system. It didn't come out right. The numbers scared me, and I wasn't going to show you without getting them correct. So I hope to have them out. You'll also note a similar thing happened with the resolutions register. I've now got the resolutions register correct. I just need to perform an update on that one. You should get that one either this week or next week, and the projects report will follow shortly after.
Any other comments or questions? No. No. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. So we go to item 9, which is Council Member Report. 9.1 is Presiding Members Report. And there's a recommendation that my report for July 2023 be received. Is there a mover that we receive that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Nicholson. Any questions or comments? No, that's good. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Item 10 is confidential items. There are none. So, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. 9.2 is a council member activity report. So I just missed it because there wasn't any. But are there any verbal updates that are relevant to your activities? No. So we'll move on. So item 10 is confidential items. And there are none. So 11 is the closure. So we close the meeting at 7:55 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance.
South Coast Television, your community,